Hi there, my name is Victor and I am a master technician.
Please be aware that I do not represent any company. I'm not endorsed by or affiliated with any automotive manufacturer or car dealership. All opinions expressed in this video are my own, and all trademarks, logos, and brand names are the property of their respective owners.
Alright, so today we're going to replace the water pump on my 13-inch lifted Tundra. The truck is really tall, so it's kind of difficult to work on it. So I'm going to show you a trick that I do to be able to access the engine without too much trouble anyways. So all you need is a couple just bare rims. Put them onto the truck and then lower it all the way down so the suspension compresses, and now we're actually at a fairly reasonable working height. First thing we're going to do is drain the coolant. Open the radiator cap, take off the engine cover, take off the upper radiator hose, remove the accessory drive belt. The tensioner is way down there. You're going to have to crank it counterclockwise and then pull the belt off. Next, you need to unbolt the fan from the pulley. So use a pry bar like this, jam it in between the pulley hub and one of the nuts, and then use a 12mm wrench to loosen them. There are 4 of them, so you're gonna have to rotate it and do this 4 times. Okay, so all the nuts are off, but this fan, it's very often stuck to the pulley and you can't get it off. It's really difficult. So I'm gonna spray some penetrating oil on where they mate, right there, and let it soak in and go around it. Alright, so I'm gonna let it sit like that, and then we're gonna have to pry it or knock it off so we can loosen it. Now this thing is really stuck on there and I cannot get it off, so I am gently prying on the pulley from behind. You want to be careful so you don't bend it, and then rotate the fan, 90 degrees, and get behind there and pry it a little more, and just keep going in circles until it finally comes off. It's moving very little, but it's moving. Alright, so now there's a gap between the back of the fan flange and the pulley, so we can actually get a screwdriver or a pry bar right in there and start separating it. You can see that it's moving a little bit, but man, this thing is really stuck. It's all that off-roading I've been doing. Alright, so the fan's ready to come off, so you can take it off the hub and just rest it down on the shroud. Be careful not to damage the radiator fins. Now we gotta unbolt the shroud and take them out together. Disconnect the overflow tank hose from the radiator. Undo the 2 10mm bolts holding the shroud to the rad. Now you can pull the fan and the shroud out together. You're going to need to hold the fan with one hand and the shroud with the other. There you go, fan and shroud out of the truck. Remove the fan pulley to give us a little more room to work. Okay, next we're gonna loosen the 4 bolts on the water pump pulley. Same way that we did with a fan. You can stick a pry bar in between here, kind of like this, to hold it from spinning, and then loosen the other bolts intermittently with a 12 mil wrench. Once the bolts are out, remove the pulley. It might be stuck on, so you can gently pry it from behind to get it off. Be careful and don't bend it. All right, now we want to disconnect the throttle body and the wiring for it, and then the air injection pump wiring, and then the hoses for the air injection, and then this little coolant hose right here. So we're doing all that so we can get good access to this thermostat housing. Get the wiring out of the way. Now we can undo this 10 mil bolt right there and get these air injection pipes a little bit out of the way as well. So now we can actually see what's going on with this thermostat housing here. Squeeze this clamp right there and take off the lower radiator hose. All right, we gotta unbolt this thermostat housing here, remove it off the water pump, and the manual will tell you to disconnect these hoses in the back here, and then this one, and then remove it that way. But it's kind of a pain in the butt disconnecting, especially that one in the back. And I believe last time I was able to get it off without disconnecting anything, so that's what I'm going to try right now. And there are 3 bolts that hold it on. One's kind of easy to get to. It's right down there at the end of my screwdriver. There it is. The other one's quite a bit more challenging. It's right inside there. Let me see if I can get a better shot at it. Right there. And then there is one from the bottom. So here is that thermostat housing view from the bottom, and you can see the bottom bolt right there. So that one's not hard to get to at all. It will be the one right there on the side that's going to be challenging, and I think I'm just going to get a wrench in there and sneak it off that way. Okay, yeah, we can get to that side bolt with a wrench from the bottom and loosen it that way. The top bolt we can get with a ratchet and an extension. There we go. And the bottom bolt is also pretty easy to access with a ratchet and an extension. Now you can pull the thermostat housing off slightly. Some coolant's gonna come out of there probably. Okay, and hopefully that's enough for us to replace the water pump. If not, I'll need to undo some of these hoses here. Alright, looks like we gotta disconnect at least this one. Now with the thermostat housing loose, it's actually pretty easy. because you can move it and get it out of the way. All right, so now we have a lot more room to work on it. It's that one right there that's a pain, not the one in the rear. That one is hard to undo because it attaches to a hard steel line. It's a really short hose. But now that the housing is loose, we can probably undo these clamps as well and just get it right out of the way. I found it the easiest to disconnect this front hose from here rather than trying to do it at the thermostat housing. Okay. Alright, the clamp is off this last short little hose and we can get the thermostat housing right out of there. Next thing you gotta do is unbolt the water pump. It's pretty straightforward. I'll just show you the water pump out of the truck so it's easier to see. So you're gonna have 14 mil bolts right here, 14 mil head bolts, and then you're gonna have a 12 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 12 mil head bolts to loosen them all and take them out. That's what it looks like in a car. There you go. So loosen all those bolts and take the pump right out. Alright, so I also ended up having to remove this short piece of hose because the 14 mil bolt right there, it hits up right against it, so you can't get the bolt out. Now we can actually get the bolt and it will pass right through here. Once all the bolts are out, the water pump will come out. Make sure to catch the coolant into a suitable container so you don't make a mess. Clean the water pump mating surface. I use like a green Scotch-Brite. Don't use abrasive disc on a grinder. You can gouge the aluminum and then the gasket won't seal it. So just scrub it with like a green Scotch-Brite type pad, and you can use brake clean or water as to clean it off afterwards. Okay, after it's nice and clean, wash all the crud off with some water and then blow all the holes out so there's no coolant and water left in them. Okay, so you want to install the new gasket and the water pump. 5 of the 12 mil head bolts are the same, and then there's a longer one. So the longer one goes right in here, and then the short ones go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The 14 mil head bolts go right there. And then these ones you torque to 35 foot-pounds. This one to 17. And then these little guys to 15 foot-pounds. Or if you don't have a torque wrench, just tighten them nice and snug. One last thing, when you pull these bolts out, some of them have silicone on them. That's just the remnants from when the timing cover was installed. All of them go into blind holes, so you do not need to put any silicone on any of these bolt threads. Install the O-ring that's supplied with a water pump in a groove and use some silicone-based grease to hold it in place while you're installing the thermostat housing. Clean the mating surface on the thermostat housing with that same Scotch-Brite pad, and then reinstall it back on the water pump with the 3 bolts right there, and tighten them to 15 foot-pounds or nice and tight. After you reinstall the thermostat housing, in essence, proceed with reassembling everything in the same order that it was removed. Okay, so we reinstalled all the hoses run into the thermostat housing, the wiring for the air injection pump, the hoses for the air injection pumps, and then the water pump pulley right here, and torque that to 15 foot-pounds as well, or snug it up nicely. Okay, so the next thing is going to be to install the fan pulley and then the fan and the shroud. Reinstall this upper rad hose and fill it with coolant and bleed it. Oh, and of course the drive belt as well. Fill the cooling system nice and slow, and that will help it kind of self-bleed itself. Don't just dump a bunch of coolant in there, because then it will trap air bubbles inside. Alright, so once the funnel is full and the system is filled, it's time to bleed it. So you're gonna bleed it by starting the engine and kind of gently revving it up and down and coming out and checking for bubbles. Squeeze the rad hose and keep looking if bubbles are coming out. You see how they're coming out right now. So let's do that. And you know that it's bled when no more bubbles are coming, and also the heater is blowing hot air when the truck is at idle. If it blows hot while it's revving up, but then it cools off when it idles, that means there's still air trapped in the system. So I have the heater on hot, so you can kind of see what temperature the air is coming out. And then rev it up to about 2000 and hold it there for a bit. Let it idle and just keep doing this. These things can be a little bit hard to bleed sometimes. It might take a few minutes. Keep an eye on the coolant temperature too. Make sure you don't overheat, otherwise you're gonna get a big geyser of superheated coolant shooting out of that funnel there. So keep bleeding it for a bit. Keep checking for bubbles in the coolant, and then once it's idling and it's blowing hot air for a while out of the vents, you know that the system is bled through. So you can see the bubbles coming out, so obviously there's still a bunch of air. So keep idling it, revving it up, and then if it starts getting a little hot, then shut it off, let it cool off for a few minutes, and wait till the bubbles stop coming and it's blowing hot air. No more bubbles. The heater's blowing hot at idle. We can shut her off and cap it off. Put on the rad cap. Top up coolant to full or slightly over full because it will settle down when it cools off. And that's it, guys. Tundra water pump replacement completed.
Thanks for watching. Please check for product links below the video for any tools or supplies needed to complete the procedure shown in this tutorial. If you would like me to make a specific video, please leave a suggestion in comments. And don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Cheers!